one of the most simple things and really most profound things that I really learnt from my exploration into this realm was the true definition of the dominant and the sub. So, with the person who's holding the position of dominance, and can be in like a sexual scenario or just, a work scenario or teacher student scenario, like there's always a power play going on. Like if we think that power dynamics are not real, like we're delusional. And I think a lot of spiritual circles kind of like try and avoid this and be like, oh no, we're all one. It's like, no, there are actual power dynamics that are always operating. Like in any given circle of people, there's always going to be one person that takes the leadership naturally. Someone has to lead. And I think because what we've seen is abuse of power and tyrants and like, you know, um, dictatorships, there's almost like this, in spiritual community, like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. Let's just be all one. But then there's this like shadow aspect of power dynamics, and it's just leaky. It's not clear. Like, I really feel this new paradigm is getting into right relationship with power. And we always need a leader, but it's not going to be leaders that are abusing power, what we've seen, up until now. It's more going to be like collaboration and like someone who's actually serving not just the ego as a tyrant and a dictator, but serving the people, like the actual leader is serving the people and serving a higher power, like God, universe, whatever you want to call it. So, in terms of this like dominant submission, so the dominant energy, the dominant archetype is always, put simply, their attention is always placed outwards. So you could see that as more like a yang energy, like eyes are open, their attention is always out on the submissive, on the people. And they're almost in service to them, to the sub. Well, they actually are. They're actually in service to them. So it's like their role is actually very hard because they have to always be attuning to the person that they're leading and like having the hand on the pulse of like, okay, um, what is this person, what is this group needing right now? And like, how can I deliver that and fulfill that desire for them? And so their focus is on essentially the subconscious. So, just understanding that in itself, like even in this situation, like as a teacher, student, like my attention is on you and like how can I serve you? It's not like on my like that was something that in my early days of teaching, and I think if you are a teacher or like you hold space for people, it's just natural. You get self-conscious and you think you're worried about what people are going to think of you and all these things. And that's actually not being the dominant because you're focusing on yourself. You're not focusing on who you're serving. So that shift, like in terms of dominance, was huge. It's like, no, it's actually not about me. It's about the we and the people. And, if it was in a dynamic with a, intimate relation, it's like my attention is on the person in front of me. And so that's why yesterday in the Linga massage, I was kind of touched on that. It's like if you're giving to him a Linga massage, you're kind of in the dom role. And I like to see it as like the devotional dom, it's like you're in devotion and there's the dominant energy, but your focus is on him and and serving him and like really attuning to, okay, like where does the energy want to go now, and what is he desiring? How can I like, facilitate that movement of energy? So there's that piece. And then there's the flip of that, the submissive. So the submissive, their focus is on self. So it's actually self-conscious, not subconscious, it's the self-conscious. So as the sub or the yin, it could be like the yin or the feminine, usually it's the feminine who's more in the submissive that's a more of a feminine trait, is being more turned inward. Like when we look inward, like closing your eyes and focusing attention in, that's a surrendered space. It's a submissive space. And it requires you to, if you want to really, really truly be in your submissive energy, it's also very hard because it's not just that you're following what the dominant person is saying. You are actually have to be so clear with what you desire. And a true like submissive is really, really getting clear constantly. Like, what is it that I'm desiring? What do I feel? Like, what's going on in my internal world? What's going to like liberate more energy for both of us? And by like expressing that consistently, you're expressing your desires to the dominant in the dynamic. That dominant then is like, okay, I can work with this and fulfill your desires. So, when you really look at it like that, the submissive is actually very powerful because they're the one that's kind of like leading it in a way in this more subtle realm. And this is that feminine realm of like leadership where we're constantly tuning in, like, what am I desiring? What's going to liberate more love in this moment? What's going to liberate more consciousness? What's going to liberate both of us? And informing the dom, and he's or she, like it can be man or woman, their role is to fulfill that and make that happen. So the issue is like when there's like an incongruency in this. It's like people don't understand their clear what pole they're holding. So you might be like thinking you're in submission, but you're actually still trying to control it and fulfill your own desire. And it just muddles it. So it's like having context around this, you can play with it like easier and actually fully inhabit either that pole or that pole. And also switch between, so in the kink community, dominatrix world, there's a term called the switch, which is like you enjoy being a dom and a sub. That's what I am. Like I love both. I actually feel in order to be a good dominant, you have to know how to be a good submissive and vice versa. It's almost like, yeah, to understand what it feels like in that realm, in the other side of the spectrum, you've got to explore the other side, and that helps you be a better. It's just like how, they say like teachers, if you're a teacher of something, you also have to remain a student because it helps you become a better teacher. It's the same thing with this power play. So